How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse and I'm back for another comic book video. As I stated in my last couple of videos, this is going to be the month of Quality Comics. And this video is going to be a rundown of who Quality is. Now, I have covered a number of Quality characters before. I actually had to review my videos because I didn't even remember all the ones that I had covered. So I'll just give you a brief rundown of the list of who I've covered before, so when I don't cover them this month, you don't have to get up in arms. I've covered them before. You can go watch the other videos. Who I've covered is The Clock, Bozo the Iron Man, Black Condor, Doll Man, Doll Girl, Alias the Spider, The Invisible Hood, Quicksilver, Mouthpiece, and Neon the Unknown. Now, I believe that's all the Quality characters that I've covered so far. The reason I've done so many is I didn't realize I was going to be doing a whole month of Quality. It wasn't something I had planned before, but I am doing it now. So this video, we'll go ahead and go over who Quality was, how they got started, and where they ultimately ended up. Now, this month, I have a couple of things planned for the next couple of months. This month is going to be Quality comic books, so we'll just do Quality this month. Next month, the month of July, it's going to be an interesting one where I am going to be covering Western heroes. That's right. A number of different publications have done cowboys and Western heroes. Golden Age-ish? I think it was Golden Age. But a number of different publications did the cowboys after a while. Some of them were actually into the cowboys, and some of them were trying to keep afloat when the superheroes started to become on the decline at the end of World War II, and some other reasons. But actually getting to that in this video was one of the reasons for the decline. And then the month of August comes after July, obviously, and we'll be doing MLJ month again. And if you haven't watched the MLJ month videos before, you can watch them before we come up with the new ones, so you can see why I won't be covering some of the heroes in the next month that I obviously covered before. So we got Quality, Western heroes, and then MLJ month. So the next couple of months will be interesting. But let's get to this video on Quality Comics. And I had no idea. I had something. Let's get into it. Quality Founders Comics, Everett Arnold, saw the popularity of comic books in the late 1930s. He decided that he wanted to get into the genre of comic books. He would found his first comic books, which was known as Comic Favorites Incorporated. And what he did is he worked with a number of newspapers to print their comic strips that they print on a daily basis. The three syndicates that he worked with, they were called syndicates back then, was the McNaught Syndicate, the Frank J. Mackey Syndicate, and the Register and Tribune Syndicate. Now, what he would do is he would feature their strips, but they would be in color in the comic strips where they were black and white in the newspapers. Some of the comic strips were included, but not limited to these. They were Joe Palooka, Mickey Finn, and Dixie Dugan. I've never actually heard all of these. Those were just some of the features that would appear in the Comic Favorites Incorporated. Now, he would also have original material along with what was printed, along with the newspaper strips. Now, he did have some people who worked in the company, and they would include some of the comic strips. They also had some freelancers. Freelancers is basically it's a lot what Marvel does. You create your strips and you get paid just for the work that you do. But you don't get paid a salary. You only get paid for what you create. And he would also get work from the Eisner Eisner and Iger shop. That would be Will Eisner and Bob Iger shop. And that's why Quality Comic Books features a lot of Will Eisner's work. Now, the founding of Comic Favorites Incorporated was in 1937. Now, in 1939, the owners of the Register and Tribune Syndicate, which was the third one I mentioned, along with Arnold, would buy out the other two syndicates that they were working with, which would be the McNaught and the Frank J. Mackey syndicates. And with them buying it out, Arnold would become the 50% owner of Comic Magazines Incorporated. And I think that would be when that they would name it Quality Comics. They would release their very first issue under the Quality line as Smash Comics #1 in 1939. Now, this comic would include entirely new material. It wouldn't have any of the strips from the newspaper comics anymore. So Quality would step out as its own entity at that point. Now, buying features from the Iger and Eisner shop meant that Quality Comic Books was entering a new medium. And they would be introducing superheroes such as Plastic Man and Kid Eternity. Not all the characters would be superpower, though, because Quality also introduced Blackhawk. Plastic Man, Kid Eternity, and Blackhawk will sound familiar to anybody who reads DC Comics. They would also start doing prints of Will Eisner's The Spirit. Now, the interesting thing about The Spirit is it started in the newspapers. It didn't start in the comic books, which is probably the only thing that they still took from the comic books, or from the newspapers, to be in the comics. The first time the Quality logo would actually start appearing on the comic book was in 1940 on Crack Comics #5. From then on, anything that was being produced under the Quality name would include the Quality logo after that. It wouldn't be until the 1950s is when the popularity of comic books were starting to wane at the time. Apparently, television and paperback books were some of the reasons that superheroes started falling off the map and out of the people's interests. To try and combat this, Quality would try and do other genres that was other than superheroes, such as humor, romance, and horror. But that would only keep them afloat for so long, and they finally decided to cease the operations in December of 1956. Now, Quality Comics would go ahead and sell to National Comic Periodicals, which was now DC. And they would only keep 4 of the Quality titles running at the time, which would be Blackhawk, G.I. Combat, and Heartthrobs. And those would each go on for more than 100 issues. They would also do Robin Hood Tales, which was something that Quality did, but that only went on for another 8 issues. Now, not being an avid DC reader, I don't know a lot of what DC has done with these characters other than what I know from covering some of the characters from Quality. But I do know that some of the characters that DC bought, I think a couple of them might have moved into the public domain, but I do know that they retained the trademark for most of them, mainly like Kid Eternity, Plastic Man, The Ray. Oh, the Red Bee is on this list. That's one I forgot to mention that I covered too. So that is Quality Comics. They came out, was a, was a pretty good thing at the time, but it couldn't fight the change in people's perceptions. It would have been interesting if they could have kept their popularity and seen what kind of a force they could have been today, especially against DC and Marvel comic books. Now I have some ideas of some heroes that I want to cover while in quality. And, anyway, I hope you learned something. I hope this was interesting enough to catch your attention to be here at the end. Now, there's a number of heroes I'm going to be covering, as I just mentioned, and if there's anybody that you'd like to see before I come to the end of Quality Month, go ahead and drop me a line and let me know, so I can try and include them into this month. Like the Spirit, I would like to cover. He didn't technically start in Quality Comics. He started in newspaper syndications, but would later be the first comic book published by him would be Quality Comics. So I guess he can be considered Quality Comic books. Things like that. So if there's anybody you want to see, just let me know, and we'll include it in this Quality Month. And I'll see you here next week for the first Heroes review. Until then, I'll be seeing you.